The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
It's right about time again to swerve again, confuse the general fans again. Add another swerve and then...
Oh shit! It's Vince Russo!
Vince McMahon's best kept secret.
I am the Antichrist of professional wrestling.
David Arquette won the world title.
I've got a wife, 3 kids at home, and I really don't need this shit.
How can this show be so awful, Mr. McMahon? I didn't think it was.
Viagra on a pole match.
And Hogan, you big bald son of a bitch, kiss my ass.
Judy Bagwell on a forklift match. McMahon, the family, The Rock, they screwed us all.
Now, you're the editor, right?
Mankind did it! Jumpy, beat me! Goldberg steered Russo out of the cage.
I'm from New York.
I'll get downright nasty.
This is Vince Russo's The Brand.
I'm bringing somebody on the show today, and I'm going through his resume. And I mean, I kind of did realize this because I know he's been making a living in the wrestling business for a long time, and it's been 22 years. But here's the fascinating thing about it. You know, he's been in the business about 22 years. I started in 91, so that's about 25 years. But we've worked together on occasion, but we kind of been like ships passing in the night. You know, I would see him here, I would see him there. As a matter of fact, I just saw him a couple of weeks ago, but we really never had the opportunity to work together. I've never had the opportunity to have a discussion with him, and that's why I am honored to have him on the show today. And I'm talking about the king of old school, Mr. Steve Corino. Mr. Corino, how are you?
Good morning, Mr. Russo. How are you doing, sir?
Well, I was doing good till about a couple of weeks ago. And I somehow, have adopted your son and his nitwit friends. And Mr. Corino, I have no idea how that happened.
Right? They have latched onto you like, you're the mother now. And it's amazing. All I hear is Vince Russo this, Vince Russo that. Vince Russo's taking us to WCW. They're kids, right?
They not only are they kids, they're out of their freaking minds. But I got to tell you this, and we're going to talk about Colby, later on. But entertaining as hell. And I've always been about that, Steve. I mean, everybody knows. I've always been about the characters. And when I see, especially kids today, just stand out and being different and daring to be different, man, I love that. That's why I'm willing to do anything for them.
And that's the thing. I think Colby, he's not even 20 years old yet, and he grew up in the wrestling business. He was a great amateur, and he's got all this physical talent, and he got to a point already at 19 where he said, what do I got to do to stick out? And I said, just be different. The more you can be different and a character, then your wrestling background and your moves in the ring are just going to, accentuate what you're doing. So they found something special with this ugly ducks thing.
Steve, let me ask you about that. Because, everybody knows you are the king of old school. You're currently, commentating on Ring of Honor. Steve, this is one thing I see, with the wrestling product as a whole across the board. And this is why I'm asking you, with that advice that you gave your son, and obviously him and his buddies took the advice, and now they do stand out. I want to ask you this, Steve. What I see, and especially on the WWE level, I see a lot of wrestlers now. You don't see that many characters anymore. And I know my last couple of years at TNA, that was what was coming up. Wrestlers. And they all look like wrestlers. And, very few stood out from the bunch. And I think that, to me, that was a fear of the unknown. Is this work? Is it not going to work? I think a lot of wrestling today, I think a lot of companies and individuals are playing it safe. What made Colby different? I mean, here he is, 19 years old. You said great amateur wrestling. So if anybody would think, okay, I could just go out there and be a wrestler and I'll get over. What was different about him that he was at 19 willing to try to do something different to separate himself from the pack?
Well, believe it or not, I think a lot of the influence of him trying to be different is, Dustin Rhodes. He being a second generation wrestler, you have that a little bit of a shadow. Of course, Dustin had the huge shadow of Dream, but Colby was worried that he was always going to be Steve's son, and I think he's smart enough to realize that he needs to create his own niche, and with dyeing his hair a certain way and his tattoos and just living this different lifestyle that he does, I think it makes people go, oh wow, that's Steve's son, but it could be Colby. I could be Colby's dad in a year or two, because he's doing what he needs to do. He's getting out there, and in a wrestling world right now full of wrestlers, he's trying to be a character, and then he has that wrestling to fall back on just in case if they say, hey, look, we don't like the Ducks thing. What can you do in the ring? And he's got, he could show those skills. And, Rob and Lance, the guys that he's with the Ducklings, are great supporting players. They're all good supporting players for each other. And you can see, depending on where they're at, there's one leader and then two supporting players, but it's different wherever they're at. Wilmington, North Carolina, Colby was the leader. In Charlotte, Rob Killjoy's the leader. In West Virginia, Lance is the leader. And, I've never seen a three-man group like that. It's usually one leader, two supporting players, and, that's their success. And these guys are, they're trying to do something different. But in professional wrestling, it's that never-ending what's going to work. Do we know what's going to work? I just came back from a 4-day tour of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and, the big heel's supposed to be Naito. And he has such a stone cold Steve Austin following right now that he not only can he get no heat, he's a superstar. Where they were hoping that he was going to be the next big heel to go against Okada and Tanahashi. Now it's like, man, what do we do with him? This guy, he could take a crap and they're going to cheer. So it's all that character development that he had. Because when he was just regular Naito, the babyface, they could care less about him. So I believe it's a character-driven business because, people need something to believe in or not believe in, or something to be over the top. And I like that, that balance. You have your wrestlers, you have your characters. I like different body styles. Because I look at wrestling as a TV show that should have all this comedy, drama, action, and you look at it like a movie, but it's like 3 movies in one TV show. So I think guys try to think outside the box. And I read something a few weeks ago that says, what if we just eliminated the box? And then I think that's what Colby's trying to do. He's trying to eliminate the box and do what might work. If the Ducks don't work, he might still be 20 years old and doing something else.
But Steve, I got to tell you that he is what I see with the guy that's being eyes from the business of 25 years. First of all, like, Colby can't fool me because I could already tell he's the greatest worker in the world because he's surrounded himself with the 2 ugliest individuals I've ever seen in my life. And Colby's a good looking. He's got pop star Justin Bieber looks. So he's going to get all the chicks. Like, I know he already figured that out from the get-go.
I hope he does, because he always tries to ugly himself down. And I always say, like, you look like a mess, man. Like, clean yourself up. Well, I'm an ugly duckling. I said, but yeah, you don't have to look like a scumbag. I use like Adam Page from Ring of Honor as an example. Like, Adam Page it kind of looks like a dirty guy, but he's got a good look. He's a good looking guy. So you go, be more of the good looking dirty guy from like Sawyer from Lost or something like that. Don't look like the guy that just hasn't showered in a week.
Bro, he's never ever, no matter, bro, he could stand in front of a Matt truck and get run over, and he's never gonna look as ugly as those other 2 guys. That I'll tell you, right? So he's barking up the wrong tree if he thinks he's gonna. But bro, here's another thing, Steve. I mean, with all due respect, bro, when you mentioned the fact that he didn't want to be Steve Corino's son, Bro, he's the splitting image of you, bro.
Oh, I know.
Oh,
which is
my,
great,
bro.
'cause
I swear to God, the minute they walked up to me, like, I knew immediately, bro. Unbelievable.
Well, what's funny is, I've known C.W. Anderson for 20 years. I've teamed with him for 20 years. But that's the first time Colby and I had worked together on the show that you were on with us in Wilmington. And we're all on the outside waiting for this dive. And C.W. throws a shot at me and it hits me with a forearm. And I look, I go, dude. He goes, oh, man, I thought it was Colby. I said, oh. So, yeah, I mean, that's, I guess it's a good comparison because, his mother's not good looking. It's wild. The older he gets, the more he looks like me.
It's crazy, bro.
The progression of, me from 1994 on, I look like a young guy. And then, I made that big switch to look like an old guy. But, like, he looks like me in the beginnings of ECW.
Now, Steve, I have to ask you this, bro. And I don't know. I have to admit that I have to think that a lot of people in the business feel this way. But I don't know about you, bro, because I don't know too much about you. But I feel there is a genuine love for the wrestling business with you. And I got to be honest with you, Steve, a lot of that was taken from me. Like, I got into the business for the love of it. But after experiencing, the WWE and then especially, WCW and then, TNA and the politics and everything that goes with wrestling, man, I never thought it would happen to me, but it turned into a job. So, like, there was always this love and hate relationship with me in the business. There was a part of it I loved, the raw creative end of it. The part of it I loathed what were just the politics of the business. Now, I have two sons, Steve. They're a little older than yours. They're like 26 and 29. But they never had anything to do with the wrestling business. Colby was a little different now. Colby wanted to do this. Steve, was there a side of you that was like, man, yeah, I'm so proud of him wanting to follow it in his dad's footsteps, but the other part is saying, man, I know what I've gone through the last 22 years, and this is not an easy road.
Oh, yeah, and I think because he grew up in the wrestling business with me, he's seen a lot of stuff that he probably shouldn't have seen as a kid. And, I mean, you've seen second-generation guys come and they become messes. They whether it be drugs or just that wrestling craziness that me and Dreamer talk about. But Colby, I think, has always been grounded to, he's always wanted to live that dream of being a professional wrestler since he was 3 years old. And, I look back at some of the stuff I did. Like I said, I just got back from Japan and I'm talking to the younger foreign guys and I'm like, man, when I was here, I used to, oh man, I could never tell Colby that. Or, oh man, I can never tell Colby that. And I'm like, yeah. And I consider myself like pretty laid back, but I understand exactly what you're saying about you get the, people call it the bitterness, but it's not, I don't think it's a bitterness. It's the, you want wrestling to be so good and people ruin it for you. And I think it's not a bitterness. It's a constant want for it to get better, yes. Because if you really hated it, we wouldn't be talking right now. You'd be doing something else.
Yeah, Steve, I get that a lot, Steve. I get that, I'm the bitter old man and, I'm bitter because I'm not working for the WWE, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's exactly what you said, Steve. It's not a bitterness at all. It's a frustration of, watching, and I use the WWE as an example, but just watching it and like kind of knowing what it could be, what it used to be. And I'm not just talking about my Attitude Era, bro. I go back to freaking Bruno. The first people I ever saw on TV were the freaking Valiant Brothers and Captain Lou. That was my first memory of wrestling. So my memories go back to then and then, the WrestleMania era, and, the Rock and Wrestling and, all the way through the Attitude Era. And I look at today and there's the frustration of what it could be. And a lot of people throw that word bitter at me. Bro, it's not that. I just want wrestling to be the best it possibly can be.
And I agree with you. And I think that's why I've been so laid back over the years that, I don't speak up publicly, or, I don't cry and complain on Facebook and Twitter. Like, you'll see guys that have been wrestling for 20 years that have never done anything, and they're crying and complaining about, well, when I was this and I was that. I'm like, man, I always equate it to, hey, just because you didn't make WWE didn't mean that you weren't good. It's, hey, there's a ton of actors that might be better than Robert De Niro, but they never got that shot. So just be happy that you got to do something that you love. I had a career that, I wish I had Vince McMahon giving me money every week, but I didn't. And instead of being bitter, I created my own brand. I spent 8 years in the Pro Wrestling 01 office in Japan. I've been with Ring of Honor off and on since the start. I've, evolved my character more than 5 or 6 times because I didn't want to be that old guy. I'd rather be known as the guy that's, oh, I can't believe he's trying this, because then I'm trying something else, because I don't want to be that ex-ECW guy that couldn't get back on the horse and hate the business that I've loved since I was 8 years old. So, I always look at every opportunity as a way to just enjoy it. I was a nerdy kid that lived in suburban Philadelphia all my life that used to go to the Philadelphia Civic Center. If you would have told 13-year-old Steve Corino that he would do 1/100th of what he's done in the last 22 years, I would laugh. I would laugh. Like, I was so late to the game. I was smartening up. And I tell Shane Douglas this. I said, man, Shane Douglas exposed the business to me. And he always laughs. And he wrestled Playboy Buddy Rose in the dark match SummerSlam 90. And I somehow scored front row tickets. And, I was 17 at the time, 17 in 1990. And I knew wrestling was worked, but I didn't know. And Shane's about to make his comeback on Buddy Rose. And I see Buddy Rose say, give me a backdrop. And I went, oh, the magic's gone. The magic's gone. But it clicked. Like, instead of the magic being gone, it was like, man, I want to be a magician. I want to be part of that secret society that they're in. And I've enjoyed every little bit. 8 months ago, they told me that, my in-ring career was over and I needed that neck fusion surgery that was going to keep me out a year. And I worked hard and changed everything about my life, and I was back in 4 months and feeling better at 43 than I did it at 27. So
but Steve, this is what I have to ask you. This is why, like, I love having you on, because God, bro, you're a unique character in the wrestling business, and I really respect it, and I want to get to the root of it. You are the guy that you've been going for 22 years and never had that WWE run, never had that WCW run, never had that TNA run. You more or less have been, an independent guy hustling for 22 years. Now again, you've made a great career in Japan. You are in and out of Ring of Honor. You've done all that. But you've never had that one run where you made that big chunk of money and were maybe able to take it easy. Steve, I have to ask you this. I'm working with a group here in Colorado, and you know them. I know we work a lot with Ring of Honor. We changed our name to Rocky Mountain Pro. So, like, I'm working with a lot of these young kids on the independent scene now. Steve, there was a time about 5 years ago, I walked away from TNA because the political environment, it just got too much for me. And I was either like, you could stay here and be miserable or freaking walk away. And I walked away without anything lined up. So, here I am 5 years ago. I'm about 50, and I've got to go into self-promotion mode. And I got to start booking myself to write here, do a podcast here, make a personal appearance here. I had to earn my own way. Steve, I have to get in your mindset because, now that I'm around these kids, I can use you as an example. Here's why I could have never done what you've done for as long as you've done it, for 22 years, constantly more or less being your own boss. Number one, the time that I did it, it was absolutely exhausting for me because if I stopped, there was no work. Like, it was that simple. If I stopped, I wasn't working. But number two, bro, the pressure of that next job and the money coming in. And, we know, you had Colby, you had a kid, you were married at the time. And Steve, the combination of those two things, like knowing I couldn't stop, and the pressure of, I got to pay this bill, I got to pay that bill. What's my next gig? Bro, I can't imagine making a career out of that and parlaying that over 22 years. And I'm asking you how you did it, because I think it's very important for those kids that are coming up in the business today to pass along that knowledge.
I think it's a case of you have to plan ahead. You can't rely on, hey, I'm making X amount of dollars on an indie show Friday and Saturday, and that's going to be my average throughout the 52 weeks. So, you have to worry about, okay, what if I go 2 weeks without an independent booking? What am I going to do? I made X amount of dollars. Okay, what am I going to spend on the road? What am I going to spend on food and lodging and gas? And, because a lot of these independent guys don't get their trans paid for or their hotel paid for. So, what are they going to do? And too many guys get $50 in their pocket and want to spend $55. I mean, everybody knows the troubles with Ric Flair. He made millions of dollars, but spent tens of millions of dollars in living that lifestyle. And I don't think I ever got into that lifestyle because I wanted a house. I wanted, money in my bank. I didn't want to struggle. Even now, I run a successful business outside of pro wrestling, that just in case, Ring of Honor fires me tomorrow or New Japan fires me tomorrow, I'm fine. I have money saved away because I knew that my shelf life, if you told me I was going to be wrestling at 43, I'd be like, I don't know. That's a long time to wrestle, but I wanted to be prepared for the future. Today, guys, unfortunately, and I look at guys from ECW, and I hate to bury them, but I look at too many guys that were, say, opening or mid-card level ECW guys that have nothing. They have nothing. And, you see too many GoFundMes for guys that should have saved that money because, I can't ask a fan to pay my medical bill because I already asked them to pay for the ticket to perform in front of them. Now I'm double dipping. And it's just the way that I think. So if I have advice for indie guys now, it's save that money. If you're making $50 a night, man, make sure that 40 of it's in your pocket, and you're paying all your bills, because there's nothing worse than getting behind. I was in Puerto Rico for a year, 8 years ago, and Carlos and Victor Jovica, they'll get behind on pay, and it was miserable. And as soon as I got back to the mainland, I thought, man, I better get a second job to make sure that I cover anything that I should have been given in Puerto Rico, instead of crying and complaining that, hey, I'm missing money, or that they shorted me on money. Hey, you know what? I'm going to go work here and work there and wrestle on the outside. And I didn't worry about the reputation. I always get upset when fans bury Shane Douglas for working at Target. Well, where would you like him to work? Right. Shane Douglas was taking care of his family, if anything. And, I worked at Target for 3 or 4 weeks to make $1,200 to pay off bills that, I was hoping that Victor Jovica would have given me the money that, but what do I do? Do I get bitter, or do I just keep going forward? So,
Steve, did you, but see, you made a good point there. You talked about Ric Flair, and not to single Ric Flair out there. There are hundreds and hundreds of wrestlers. Yeah. But now, Steve, did you understand that early on, or did something happen where it's like, oh, okay, wait a minute, I get it now? Did a light bulb? Because I can't believe at a young age, when you started in the business, I think you were probably about 21 years old or so. I can't believe, at a young age, when the money, starts coming in, I can't believe that you've already got that adult mentality and knowing that this could end any day. I better start saving my money. Or, did that have something to do with your upbringing, or did you see other wrestlers kind of fall, and you were like, wait a minute, I can't fall into that trap?
Well, I was going to say it's kind of a reverse of the upbringing where, you know, my parents were like Ric Flair. They would get $100 and they would want to spend $100. And they didn't think towards the future. Where, you know, at 17 years old in my senior year of high school, I was working full time at a union-based dairy. You know, I was doing 40 hours a week and 3 classes. And, you know, I thought, well, if this is my career, if I'm going to be a milkman for all my life, you know, I'm going to be the best milkman possible. And then, you know, when I got into pro wrestling, I was lucky to be around guys like Tom Brandi and King Kalua. And, you know, Tom always is, it's not how much you make, it's how much you bring home.
Bro, bro, you know that, God, that's a great name from the past, and what a great guy. Bro, I have not heard of Tom Brandi for years. What's the update on Tom Brandi?
You know, Tom's another one that, you know, he's got that bitter label, but he's another one I think that always wanted, you know, to do more than he was allowed to do, because he always spoke up, as you know, and, you know, he's still kicking around on the Northeast Indies doing the Patriot and South Sincere. And for a guy that just turned 50 years old, he still looks like he's 30.
And he's still going.
Yeah, still going and still putting on great matches. I always believe that if there was a guy and you looked at his body and you looked at his microphone skills and stuff like that, you know, I equate him to an Al Perez, that these are guys that should have, you know, been at least mid-card to upper mid-card WrestleMania guys that never got that shot because, you know, they were independent thinkers, and not like independence wrestling, but independent like, I'm going to say no, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it my way instead of playing the game. So I think I was a little more laid back into playing the game. Okay, you know, I never cared about doing jobs. I never cared about, you know, what, you know, if you give me crap, I'm going to try and make that crap smell as good as possible, and I'm not going to complain about it. So I think for me, I got a lot of my longevity came from being versatile. You know, it's, you know, a babyface, heel. You know, you could be a top guy or you could be a supporting player. You know, just in Puerto Rico and Japan, I had some booking stuff that I did. So I always tried to be that versatile player, and, you know, that might be the key to success. But yeah, I learned early on that, man, you know, if I'm making $30 or $40, I want to keep as much as possible, because, you know, I was only wrestling a year and a half when Colby was born. So like I had to think like, okay, I got the dairy, I have you know, a child, what am I going to do? And, you know, I worked in Memphis in 1997 near the end, where we were running 3 days a week, and I was making $40 a night. And so I was making $120 a week, and I'm sending 105 home to my wife at the time. And literally, you know, if Billy Joe Travis wanted to ride, I'm like, come on in. And, you know, he taught me how to, you know, work the Wendy's Super Bar system. And, you know.
But Steve, how did you escape? I'm listening to your story, and I know myself. So I'm sitting here, I'm listening to you, and I think I can speak for the average person. I'm sitting here saying, bro, I would have been so freaking stressed out of my mind of where is the next check coming from? What's the next gig? Anxiety would have kicked in. And bro, now all of a sudden, if I'm a wrestler and things like that are kicking in, well, let me reach for the pill jar, you know, to my God, Steve, you can't tell me while you're going through that period, you're not stressed out of your mind.
Oh, I was. I mean, yeah, I make it sound like it was, you know, easy, but, you know, I went through ECW at the end where we didn't get paid for 14 weeks, and, you know, we couldn't jump to WCW or WWF, and, you know, I mean, you were at WCW at the time, and I had Dusty, you know, trying to get me in and tell me to walk away, and I had just bought a house literally the week we started not getting paid, and, you know, I ended up having to sell that house at a huge loss, and where, you know, people would be bitter at Paul for the rest of their life because they lost the house. I was more mad at myself that I didn't prepare more. And I said, well, you know what? I'm never going to let that happen again. I'm going to take that and use it as a learning tool and go, because, you know, what are you going to do? Coca-Cola goes down. Are you going to be mad at Mr. Coca-Cola? You know, he tried his best. So, you know, and it's up to me. It's up to me to get back on the horse and do everything. So, you know, when we bought our house a year and a half ago, like, we were ready. My wife, not Colby's mom, but my wife now, we were ready, and, we bought something that wasn't too much in this, because what if, with the neck injury, what if I'm out wrestling the rest of my life? Okay, what do I have to fall back on? My wife has a good job. I have a good job outside wrestling. Maybe wrestling is the extra. Or if I lose that job on the outside, maybe that was the extra and the wrestling is covering. So, I'm always trying to plan for the future, because I don't want to be, and I don't want anybody to think that I'm burying these guys to do this. I'm not a convention guy. I can't. It's social anxiety, which is crazy to believe considering what we do.
No, I'm the same way, man.
Yeah. And I have a hard time, not talking to fans, but taking their money. I get mad at other guys that take money for the cell phone picture, and I get it. They have to make their dollar, but I built my life around where I don't need that dollar, so I won't put myself in that position, because I don't want to be 65 years old or 70 years old and walking around a convention begging for somebody to buy my $5 pitcher. And it's not to say that, what they're doing is wrong. That's where I don't want to be. I want to be Nick Bockwinkel. I don't want to be Virgil. You know what I mean? And I love
Steve,
Virgil,
you do know, with all due respect, you do know I'm 15 years away from 70. Steve, I just want to let you know that. But go ahead.
I feel like I'm that close. Yeah.
Steve, I got to ask you this, man. I got to ask you this because, bro, working with the kids now at Rocky Mountain Pro, before I started there, I addressed them as a group. And my first question to them is, okay, how many of you here are here because you want to work for the WWE? Every single person raised their hand. Now, me having worked at the WWE and experiencing that, obviously I'm saying to myself, why? just why? But Steve, I have to ask you, and that's the thing that I try to educate these kids, because, at some point you gotta be realistic. You gotta look at the number of spots. You gotta look at that politics involved. Who knows who? You gotta look at these things because it's a business. When you started in the business, Steve, were you one of those guys? Were you one of those guys, the dream, the goal, the end-all, be-all, the WWE? And if not, explain to me what made you different.
You know what? Maybe because I made short-term goals. My first goal was to wrestle one match, because I was a 165-pound kid. I didn't have a amateur wrestling background. I was a baseball player in high school and college. So I made little goals for myself, and sometimes markish goals, whether it be, I want to wrestle a match. Okay, I want to wrestle at my old high school. I want to win a championship. 2 years in, I got a chance to do jobs for the WWF. And man, when you're making $30 and $40 and you get that $250 payday to get beat up by Crush in 2 minutes, you're like, wait a second. But I never saw that as, well, I want to be a jobber for the rest of my life. I took that as, I want to make wrestling my living. So I never really looked at the WWE as a possibility, because I grew up a Japanese wrestling fan. So to me, Japan was where I wanted to go. And I didn't know if I was going to make the money that I would have made. Obviously, I would make the money that I would make in WWE if I was a top guy. But at every little bit, of course, the main event of WrestleMania should be everybody's long-term goal. But make all those short-term goals so that, you catch them and you realize that, man, what a world we live in, that pro wrestling, something that we grew up on and we loved. I was a little kid watching Tommy Wildfire Rich and Gordon Soley on Georgia Championship Wrestling. Now I've been to England 21 times. I've wrestled Tommy Rich. I was in a program with Dusty Rhodes. I sit there and me and Ricky Morton will talk like we're friends. And I 30 years ago yesterday, I went and saw him win the World Tag Team titles at the Philadelphia Civic Center. So I'm living that dream that I was at 8 years old, and I never lost sight of, I am in the professional wrestling business, and holy hell, there are two things I wanted to be as a kid. It's a wrestler and a baseball player.
But Steve, help me with this. You just said something very key. You said, I'm in the professional wrestling business. And see, I don't know if you noticed this, bro, like a lot of people in the industry, listen to the show, especially now I'm on podcast one. Thank God I got a pretty good reach. So I'm asking you these questions because I know there are a lot of people listening that need to hear you. Steve, I'll never forget when TNA was starting about 14 years ago, when at the very beginning, when Jerry Jarrett was involved. I'll never forget, bro. We had a meeting and we were like booking the first show, and Jerry started talking about the payoffs for the boys, and Steve, like some of them were freaking ridiculous. Like I'm talking $20, $50, and I've always looked at it this way because I'm not a wrestler. I always looked at it this way every time, and you obviously with the neck. Every time a wrestler steps in the ring, it could be his last match. You one wrong move, boom, and it's over. So to me, if a wrestler's getting in the ring for $20, I have issues with that. But I'll never forget, I said, Jerry, this is 14 years ago, Steve. I said, you can't freaking pay them that. And he looked at me and laughed. And he said to me, he goes, Vince, are you kidding me? He goes, they would pay us to be on our TV. And Steve, 14 years, more and more and more, I would see that where I hate to use the term, Steve, but guys were such marks to be wrestlers. Oh my God, I get to wrestler. I get to be in a wrestling match. There's such marks that the business aspect of it is they don't even consider that. And I've gotten into this with so many of the young guys, Steve, where, to steal a phrase from Dusty, it's all about the flip-flop and flying. And I'm trying to tell these guys, listen, guys, wrestlers have a very short shelf life. You want to expand that. The less you do, the longer your career, the more money you make. But Steve, I just find out more and more and more with these kids coming up, it's almost like they don't understand it's a business. They don't understand we have X amount of years to make money, and they're more concerned with going in a ring, in front of 50 people and getting the "this is awesome" chance than being a Steve Corino at 43 and still being able to work a match. What made you understand this is a business? I need to make money. I need to prolong this as long as I can.
I think it was the influence of, Tom Brandi and King Kalua in the beginning where, King had taught Tom and Tom had taught me, both of them had taught me. But I always realized like it was always a business to them as much as they loved it. Like, and I think that's the difference is if you treat it like a business, you don't love it. And I think that's so wrong. It's the fact that you can treat it like a business and love it. Now you got the best of both worlds. It might start from the beginnings. Maybe wrestling schools don't the aspect of professional wrestling as much as they should. It's the youth. They're just taught, get out there, steal the show, and try and get the WWE instead of the long road to WWE because, there's thousands of wrestlers out there, but only so many spots. So, what are you going to do to that point? Do you want to be a career minor leaguer for the rest of your life, or do you want to, save on your way to, if you are a career minor leaguer? I always equate myself to, I'm Crash Davis from Bull Durham.
Right.
I was that career minor leaguer that, got a little taste of the big time here and there. But for the most part, I was a AAA guy, and I was happy with it because I saved my money with it. Where just like he did, like he could walk away and he could retire and do stuff. Whereas I did it like a business, and I still do. And sometimes it gets me young promoters that go, well, I can get this guy at X amount of dollars. Well, that's fine, man. This guy this much, and you want me to stay at home? That's cool. I have a great life. I live at the beach. I have a 2-year-old. I have a beautiful wife. I have a Jeep. I have a kayak. There's a million other things that I could do besides, devaluing myself and bumping in a hard ring in front of 50 people. And that's not to say that everybody should do that, but I built that niche for myself that I don't have to do it unless I need to do. And, it doesn't. Yeah, it sounded snobby, but but what I'm getting at is I just try to prepare for the future because I do treat it like a business, because I don't want to rely on merchandise sales. I don't want to rely on Will New Japan call me next week for a good payday over on the next tour. I just want I want to be prepared.
God, Steve, I got to tell you, and I want a royalty on this. Bro, I'm sure you give seminars around the world. I'm sure you give wrestling seminars. But, Steve, have you ever done this? And I'm telling you this wholeheartedly, especially working with a lot of the kids today. Bro, you need to go out there and give seminars at wrestling schools and kids coming up on how to make a career in the wrestling business. I mean, have you ever considered that? Have you ever done that?
Oh, absolutely. I do. My seminars are all classroom based. I tell everybody, leave your gear on. I want you to bring a pad of paper and a pen, and I'm going to give you a 9-page pamphlet. I'll email it to you after the interview. And it's basically how to survive. And it's not about the lock up and the grab the arm, grab the head, tackle, drop down, hip toss, let's get it again. It's about statistics. It's about who's a wrestling fan. Why are there certain commercials on Monday Night Raw? Why a punch could make or break a match, why lockup could make or break a match, not because of you're doing it, but the believability. I talk about believability in the wrestling business. I talk about how we all know movies are worked, but we still go and we suspend our disbelief. Why do we use wrestling as it's fake? That's just it. It's lazy. It's lazy. You want everything to be believable. Was it believable that a plane crashed on a Hawaiian or this weird island that 46 people, 46 people survived, and they were all interconnected somehow and there was a black smoke monster and a guy that ran the island. And
the polar bear never explained, for God's sake.
Right, and I'm a believer that not everything has to be explained because it's imagination. Why did the polar bear? Why was that Japanese guy on the island, but we only saw him in season 5? I like the open ends of we're always thinking. To this day, did Tommy Rich and Buzz Sawyer ever get together and shake hands, or did they always just hate each other for the rest because they left it open? And so I try to teach that to the kids today, as it's just open your mind. You're a brand, but you're a brand within a brand within a brand. Like the WWE is the biggest wrestling brand in the universe. But hey, McDonald's is a huge fast food brand, but Coca-Cola's in there, so be your brand and accentuate your brand.
Hey, I got to tell you this, Steve. I want to ask your opinion on this because this is what I'm trying to tell the students, at Rocky Mountain Pro. I'm trying to tell them, guys, the WWE is a dream. Only X amount of people are going to make it there. And it's great to have your dreams. But realistically, and I try to tell them this, why can't you build your own promotion right here in your backyard and make a living right here? To me, that's a more realistic goal. And I was reading something very interesting online today, and this is confirmed because I spoke to one of the people that fell into this category. And listen, man, wrestling doesn't have the same audience that it has. I know WWE is making a lot of money, and a lot of that has to do with they're the WWE. I think they could be making a lot more if they were doing things the right way. We all know of TNA's financial issues. I was reading an article today, Steve, saying that a lot of the veterans of the WWE were contacted to go back for this brand split. And a lot of them turned it down because they realized, well, with the money they were offered, wait a minute, we're making more money on our own now. And I know, I'm not going to mention who, I know somebody as a fact that fell into that category. So with the wrestling landscape being what it is today, you know, and you are a veteran of that independent scene, do you think there's more of an opportunity today to actually make a living in the independents, much like you did for 22 years? Is that more viable today?
I think it's, a case of who you are. I got two buddies that are, the most over thing in the world right now. And I would think that if they, with what they make in merchandising and what they make with Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling, I would think that they would be making a mistake going to the WWE. And I think they're smart enough to realize that. But I also think they're smart enough to realize that they only have a shelf life to where maybe they should go. Where I think that guys like AJ Styles and Carl Anderson, Doc Gallows knew that, okay, we have now written our own ticket. We showed that we could draw in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and we're not going to start at $750 a week. We're going to, show Vince our worth. And it's a fine line, and not everybody can do it. And I agree with some of the guys that, they could have taken the easy road and went back on TV in front of 3 million people and not done the hustle. But at the end of the day, what would they have made compared to what they're making now? And I think it's also a matter of happiness. You had said it, like, the frustration that you got because of the politics and stuff like that. I have a social anxiety. Kevin Kelly will tell you I have a paranoia that I've pretty much eliminated, since I moved to North Carolina and to the beach. But because I just want everything to be good, and I don't want people to be upset. I want to go to work every day and be happy to be there. And so, I don't know if I could handle the stress of the politics of pro wrestling, because in Japan there were no politics. I go to New Japan Pro Wrestling and there's no politics. You say to the top guy, hey, we need you down in 20 minutes today. Okay, cool. How are we doing it? And you go,
Steve, why is that? I mean, bro, I was in the pile of crap when it came to politics. I mean, bro, WCW, TNA, you can't even imagine. What's the difference that we can go to a country like Japan and that doesn't exist? I mean, I would have to think, those people have egos, just like the wrestlers here have egos. I can't imagine. Here's my problem. I can't imagine a wrestling company politic free. What's the difference?
Once again, I think it's upbringing. I think it's how they were all trained and the pecking order on the way up the ladder. Back in the day, there were tiers. There was an opening card guy and a mid-level card guy and a semifinal guy and a main event guy. And you always wanted to be a main event guy, but you knew your place, and you knew that if you got a chance to go up a level, you were going to appreciate it. You were also going to understand how it felt to be that other guy. One of the greatest things Nick Bockwinkel ever taught me was, he was a second generation guy. His dad was not a huge star. Warren Bockwinkel wasn't a huge star, but he said, young Steven, I want you to think of the old cameras, the one that you had to hold at your stomach. And he goes, and so that you could get the whole view. And I'm like, okay. And he said, well, if you put it at your feet, what are you going to see? I go, just somebody's feet. He goes, if you put it at your head, what are you going to see? Just the head. But if you put it at the middle, what are you going to see? I said, everything. He goes, and that's how you should think. You should always think like a middle guy, because you can understand what a lower guard guy is going through, and you can understand what a main event guy goes through. And I think a lot of that is the Japanese theory too. They understand the climb, whereas, maybe guys in the States think, I got to get mine as quick as possible, and I don't want anybody taking my spot. Whereas I always saw it in Japan as man, if a top guy comes over from another company, that's another guy that I can make money with, or somebody coming up from Ring of Honor. And a lot of the guys that you work with at Rocky Mountain, they've come to the ROH tryout camps, and I look at them, and my first thought is, man, I want that guy to get a job, that guy get a job, and that guy get a job, because I can make money with those guys. And not he's going to take my spot. It's, man, let's make money together, because if you make me look good and I make you look good, and then people are going to pay to see it. So, I think it starts from training, not learning that it's a business, not learning that you should appreciate each tier that you're on the way to the top. And before you know it, you don't want to be that guy that's the prima donna. And you're always going to have prima donnas. I mean, geez Louise, we all know Brian Christopher. So, for the most part, if we have 75% guys that are willing to do whatever it takes for the sake of the business, their business, the business, and the overall thing, because it's for the fan. We want fans to be entertained and keep watching, because if they keep watching, then they're buying the products that are on the commercials. If they're buying the products on the commercials, they're putting more money in. And instead of thinking, well, I got to get I got to win tonight, instead of thinking, man, I got to make money tonight. Like, it's frustrating sometimes, but I don't get it. I wish every company was politic free.
Oh God, please. Steve, you said it real quick. I want to ask you one more time. You said you've been to the UK 21 times. How many times you been to Japan?
I just got back Monday night, late Monday night. That was number 83.
Oh my! Well, hold on a second, bro. Wait.
All economy.
Okay. Steve, I got to tell you something. My whole career in wrestling, working for the big companies, I always avoided leaving the country, because I never wanted to, and I always was worried about my family and this, that, and the other thing. But obviously, once I had a hustle, I've been to the UK twice. And bro, I swear to God, when I'm there, I love it. I love the product. I love the people. I love it all. But all I could think about is that freaking play ride, and I want to throw up all over myself. Bro, I can't imagine 100 times combined between Japan. Bro, I can't fathom that. Please, is there a trick to international travel?
I wish there was, because it's, in the heavier I got, the more it was harder, because we fly economy. So it's trying to get that status on Delta to where you get the exit row where you can put your feet out, or, England the same way. It's just trying to get that status so that you can make it as comfortable as possible. And, I like to read on the plane. I like to watch my movies. I have a 2-year-old. So at home, it's Zootopia and Frozen and Kung Fu Panda all day long. Whereas, I'm like, there's a new Will Ferrell movie out. Holy crap, I get to watch it. And I'll watch it 3 times. So I get a lot of thinking done. I write stuff down. But it is a lot easier to travel now than it was 15 years ago when I started going to Japan. And I felt like the old guy, because I'm telling guys like Tama Tonga and Michael Elgin and Juice Robinson, I'm like, man, back in those days, if you wanted to call home, you had to dial 1,700 numbers. If you wanted something in English, you had to bring a VCR and videotapes. Now I sit there and, Sunday night, I'm hanging out in my hotel room in Tokyo, and I have my laptop, I have my Kindle Fire watching the Phillies play the Rockies, and, and I'm talking to my wife on my iPhone on FaceTime, and it's all free. And I'm like, and then I think back, I thought it was amazing to have a VCR in 2001. Imagine how Stan Hansen felt in 1978 with nothing. And but the travel's rough, and I don't think people understand that 14 hours. And because of where I live in North Carolina, I live near a small airport, so I get to Atlanta, and then I'm there for 5 to 7 hours.
Bro, it's brutal.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, do I buy the Delta Sky Club membership? And then I looked at it as, it's a tax deduction. It's am I going to spend $50 a month there?
Do you think? I mean, I know a lot of people have made great careers, in Japan. I mean, we can go back, but bro, I mean, could 83 times be the record?
I don't think so. Quietly, Rocky Romero has over 100, and it's so quiet because he's just that guy that's always there, and you forget because he's never been a top guy. He's always been like a top junior heavyweight. So, and he's never counted. He's like, yeah, probably over 100 times, and I'm like, absolutely, 14 years. He's there, 8 times a year. He's definitely over 100. I'd say Butcher and Hansen and maybe Doc and Gordy over 100, but 83 is pretty crazy, and it was wild because when I first started in Japan, my goal was I had read the Bret Hart book, and the one thing I took from Bret Hart's book, which is crazy that I would only take this, is that he had 40 tours in Japan. I said, I want to get 41 just to be that Canadian-born athlete that I could get one up on Bret Hart. And now 15 years later, I'm at 83.
Steve, I've always been curious of this, and this is a Markish question, but I've never asked anybody this before. Now, obviously, I've worked with a lot of the Japanese stars when they came over here, and a lot of times I sat in I was interested in the language barrier and the way like the Japanese wrestlers and the American wrestlers would lay out a match, and it's a really interesting process, and obviously. They've wrestled enough with Americans and Americans with Japanese wrestlers to be able to lay out a match. But I was always curious about this. If you're in a ring and you're wrestling a Japanese opponent who speaks Japanese and you speak English, and obviously Japanese has to be like a second language, what happens if you get lost in the match? Like what happens if you forget something and he forgets something? Like, has that ever happened where the language barrier has really been an issue? Like, I can't, like, bro, I know when I had to go out and cut promos, like I would forget what I had to say. I can't imagine laying out a match with somebody that speaks a different language and then going in the ring and something going awry. I can't imagine that.
It's I've been lucky. It's only happened to me once, and the only reason it happened was this guy was a karate guy, so he wasn't really a pro wrestler. He spoke zero English, and when we got in there, he went blank, and I just said, "Oh my goodness, okay, he's not going to be able to do anything that I laid out for him. So how am I going to be me at the end?" And, I worked around him. I knew he was going to throw kicks. I knew that I could use more crowd interaction. So it's only happened once. But, wrestling is an American sport, according to Japan. And that's why they count in English when they're on the outside. Or all the terms are in, all the wrestling moves are in English. So, when you're putting together a match, it's not as hard as you would think because it's all terms, there's some things that are different that, Americans can pick up very easily to throw a Japanese word in there because it goes with the English that they're doing. So it almost becomes a little language of their own. And it took me a little bit to get used to, a regular suplex was a brain buster in Japan. And the first time they said, okay, I give you 2 brain busters. I'm like, oh no, like I don't want to fall on my head. But when Harley Race brought the suplex over in the early 70s to Japan, it was the brain buster. So that always became a term. And it's much easier. But when you're in the ring, there's no talking. And you have to be on top of your game. C.W. Anderson just texted me yesterday. He goes, man, I just watched the G1 finals. He goes, I forgot how amazing it is not to call stuff in the ring. That you have such faith in the guy that you're wrestling with that you're now playing chess. And if something goes wrong, you're going to get it back on because you know what he does and he knows what you do. And it's not a case of, all right, duck the clothesline, give me a crossbody. It is, you got to know what you're doing. And it's probably very difficult in the beginning for a lot of guys that come over, but once they get into that comfort zone, it's probably harder to work an American style of calling a match when you get back.
Now, Steve, are you schooled enough? I mean, 83 times. Like, are you schooled enough that, like, say you walk into a Japanese fast food restaurant and they have the menu up on the wall. I mean, are you schooled enough that you actually can you read it? Do you know what I mean? I would have to believe after 83 times, you've got to be somewhat educated on the culture and everything.
Oh yeah, definitely the culture. I would say I speak Japanese at like a second or third grade level. I can understand it a lot better than I can speak it. So I think one of the reasons New Japan uses me is that if a native wrestler is on the microphone, like I can give you the gist of what they're saying. Whereas like a Kenny Omega speaks perfect Japanese, like it's like music coming out of his mouth, wow. And it's amazing. But he's been there 8 years, so. But I can get around. I'm a very picky eater, so I hate onions. So those were the first things that I learned how to say no onions on anything that I order.
Yeah.
It's such a different culture. It's learning the things that aren't going to get you in trouble. There's things with chopsticks. My buddy ACH was over for Pro Wrestling Noah for a month, and I saw him tweet out a picture. And he had his chopsticks crossed, and I texted him right away. I said, "Fix your chopsticks." He's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "I saw a picture of you in a restaurant with your chopsticks crossed." I go, "That's an insult to the cook." And he's like, "Oh my God!" I go, "If any of the boys see that, you're in trouble, man." And he's like, he deleted the picture, and he's like, "Thanks. Is there anything else I can do?" I said, "It's just the little things of getting to know the culture." Because I mean, how many times do you see foreigners come to the States and you're like, man, if they only knew, what they're supposed to know, they could get along better. That's the same thing when we're over there. We have to understand that we are guests in their country,
right? And
we have to respect everything that they have, even if it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. All right, Steve, I'm going to, I got to end this interview on a personal note, bro, because this is unbelievable to me, bro. You got to walk me through this, okay? I'm the father of 3. My kids are 29, 26, and 21. Bro, you have a 19-year-old and a freaking 2-year-old. And I'm sitting here trying to imagine, like, what would life be like today with a 2-year-old? Like, are you out of your mind, bro?
Oh, absolutely. And
like, what the heck is I mean, are you nuts, bro?
And what's crazy is my wife's 27. So like, she's a lot younger than me. And, people like joke and say, it's like a midlife crisis. But, I was lucky. And I explained this to Colby because I'm home more now than I was when I was in Japan every 2 weeks and trying to make a living. I'm home more now than I was when he was growing up. And I said, look, I am so sorry that I get to spend so much more time with your brother than I got to spend with you at this age. He goes, yeah, but you got to understand, I went to Japan 5 times. I went to Finland, Sweden, England with you. I went to all these different, Canada. I went to all these different places. He's like, it made me who I was. He's like, I almost feel bad that my brother's not going to get to see most of this stuff because an England trip is a quick weekend for me, or Japan, I'm there and I got to work the whole time. So it's definitely weird. And I mean, my wife wants to have another one. So it makes me feel young. All this stuff that Colby went through when he was 2 and 3, like is everything now, all these years later is so different. And it's crazy. And I think it makes me feel so young.
Well, I got to ask you this, though. Be honest with me now, Steve. Steve, who naps more, you or your son?
I like to use the excuse that if he naps, he likes his daddy laying with him. So that,
that's nice, bro.
I do love a good nap.
Bro, wait till you're 55, bro. The nap is going to be the highlight of the day, bro. I'll tell you that much. Now, Steve, I want to plug everything you're doing. I mean, we're going to plug Ring of Honor and everything, but also, bro, now you do your own podcast, right? The Extreme Odd Couple.
Well, we did that for a few years. Me and my buddy Rob Dimension. He's an independent filmmaker, so we haven't done it in a while. What I've been doing is a podcast with a guy named Ian Riccaboni. We do the Phillies Nation podcast. I'm a huge Philadelphia Phillies fan, and
yeah, bro. You think they could beat? I'm a Giants fan, bro. Can they at least stay in the game against the Dodgers? You think?
I think the 4 to 6 years away from making another run, but it's so different. I've lived through all those bad teams and the negativity. It's like a brand new fan coming in.
Bro, I got to tell you,
okay.
man. Yeah, I got to tell you, Steve, I swear, man, I'm a Giant fan, you know, I mean, and I waited a long time, but I guess it was 2012. They should have never, ever beat the Phillies, and I think that's what sent the Phillies on that downward spiral. I mean, on freaking paper, I was like, there's no way. And then they beat the Phillies, and ever since then, they've almost been in the rebuilding mode.
Wow, like that amazes me. I always thought that you were a Yankees fan.
Nah, bro, my father grew up a New York Giants fan, and when they moved to San Francisco, he remained a Giants fan. That's why I'm a Giants fan.
Wow.
Yeah,
just like Mad Dog Russo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they were they were freaking awesome that year, bro. I mean, I didn't think the Giants had a chance in hell of beating them. Bro, you know, I went through so many years of bad Giant teams, but I remember when the Giants lost 100 games, and I watch every game, so I watched that 100 loss, but thank God for the last decade, you know, they've been contending. I almost forgot what it's like, bro, with a losing team. Because, I mean, seriously, like, how do you stay interested? Because, you know, they're rebuilding. There's a lot of young kids on the team. And I know, you know, you got that love for the team, but is it hard to keep your head in the game all season long?
No, you know, it's funny because, you know, I love baseball. Baseball, I just love
Me too,
baseball.
bro. Me too, Steve.
It's the best pure sport ever, and I will watch it, and I'll watch for the guys that I know that are going to be here in 3 or 4 years. And I say, well, you know, this guy's doing awful, but let's face it, he's going to be playing for somebody else next year. Let's make sure that this guy's doing well and progressing. And you know, of course, I'm going to yell and scream when somebody makes an error, you know, but you know, for the most part, I go, oh, okay, we're doing way better than we should have. And you know, I do one bet a year in Vegas, and it's always on the over-under the Phillies. And this year it was 65.5 wins. They're at 57. Like,
oh yeah,
I'm in. Like, I'm going to win my $5 back.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, I love baseball. I mean, besides, you know, of course, I don't like the Mets or Braves. You know, being an NL East guy, or Nationals too, but. Marlins, no one cares about the Marlins. But, you know, I just love all baseball. And that MLB.TV is the greatest thing ever.
Oh, bro, I'm so addicted to that. And, bro, you know what I love about MLB TV more than anything? First of all, bro, God, some of the guys on there are great. You know, Howard Reynolds and Casey and Smoltz. And, I mean, they got guys on there that are incredible. But, bro, do they not put the hottest chicks on TV?
They sure do. And I think what makes them hotter is that they love baseball. Everybody's just so positive about baseball. And I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, she's like, you know, what kind of girl do you like? I'm like, oh my God, have you ever seen Sam Ryan on MLB Network? And
bro, who's your favorite girl on that show?
Maybe Lauren Shahadi.
Yeah. Bro, the girl, right? The girl next door, right, bro? Bro, I beg her to do my podcast. I send a text message. Bro, one of them follows me. Who's the girl at night that does quick pitch? Which one is that? The blue.
I can't remember her name. I know who you're talking about.
But it's not that one. It's the other blonde. The other blonde that is on during the day. What is her name? The one that's on during the day. Bro, what? She actually follows me.
Oh, you see, you're lucky. I got Casey Stern from MLB Network that follows me. I need Lauren Shahadi.
Yeah, I'm trying to get Lauren Shahadi to follow me, and she won't. But you know, bro, I was able to. He comes on the show once in a while, and he's the best because, bro, like I met him at TNA, and he comes up to me. Oh my God, Vince, I read your book on the plane, and bro, I was like freaking marking out like I used to. Bro, Sean Casey.
Yes, the mayor.
The mayor. What a
man.
Personality he's got, huh, bro?
Yeah, definitely. And it's so funny to know that these guys are wrestling fans when, I'm a huge baseball fan. So anytime I go down to spring training and, I have a friend in PR that, will be like, hey, there's this player. And he's like, dude, did you wrestle for ECW? I'm like, wow. Did you hit 20 home runs last year? Yeah. So,
bro,
yeah,
now that I know this, we just got to do a separate baseball show and talk baseball, bro.
You'll have to come on our Phillies Nation podcast.
Yeah, I didn't know, bro, because I am a baseball guy through and through. I could talk baseball all day with you, bro. I love that new kid they got, too, that right fielder. The last name begins with an A. Yes, yes. Bro, this kid's going to be good, bro.
I like him. I got a little heat with him that he wears 23. Like, Sandberg was my guy, and I understand he left the team, but, give it a year or two before you wear 23,
Yeah.
Got to respect the Rhino.
Yeah, but he's a good ball player, bro.
Absolutely.
And I got
the center.
Yeah, well, they got Herrera in center. I got him on one of my fantasy teams. I'm a fan of his, too. Second half, he's been a little shaky, though.
Yeah, the talk is that they're going to move him to second because his original position second.
Yeah,
they made him a center fielder. So there's talk about making him a second baseman next year.
Yeah, good ball play though. Well, Steve, go ahead. Let me get you back to the plugs. I want to make sure we get everything over. So you do. Where can they hear the podcast?
At Phillies Nation. I am PhilliesNation.com. If they follow on Twitter, we do a few during the season, and then we do weekly during the off season. And then my website's worldofcorino.com. My Facebook fan page is facebook.com/King Corino, and my Twitter is @King Corino. So very easy.
And Ring of Honor is on Comet, correct?
Yes, and I don't think anybody has that channel.
I have it.
Do you? I always joke that it's the invisible channel because I live on the coast of North Carolina and we don't have Comet, and so people are like, "What channel is it on?" I go, "Just watch it online."
Well, Steve, you know what the funny thing is with me, bro? The funny thing is, I don't know about you, bro, but I do not sleep. I cannot sleep. If I get 4 hours of sleep a night, it's a lot. So, I'm always up late channel surfing. And the good thing is, bro, it's usually about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I see Ring of Honor Wrestling. I'm like, oh, great, I got something to watch. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. 4 hours a night. I'm going to take a nap as soon as we're done.
Yeah, well, I want to take a nap too, just talking about it. But Steve, man, listen, I'm so glad we had this freaking conversation, bro. I mean, I learned so much, and why it's so valuable to me is working with these kids now, and using you as an example, and trying to make them understand, if your sights are on the stars, and you're only looking at the stars, well, there's a whole earth over here that you could make a pretty damn good living in.
Absolutely, and enjoy it too. You can enjoy the whole process, because think about what you would do if you weren't wrestling. You would be working in your business or something like that, taking a 2-week vacation to somewhere, and that's it. Wrestling can give you everything, and as long as you do it right.
Yeah, you could be, bro. You could be a 43-year-old man, a 55-year-old man, and we're home at 12 in the afternoon on a Wednesday.
Absolutely.
I didn't just fly back from Japan, but that's another story for another time. But, man, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's right about time again to swerve again, confuse the general fans again. Add another swerve and then put it on a pole again. Put it on a pole again. Put it on the pole again. And our square to quad is gonna get emotional as I wait to overbook the damn cards. I guess